Hi, I'm Seamless, and today is Friday, which means it's time for a new How to Bass. And today I'm going to teach you how to turn a recording that sounds like this. The spectrum of our souls must change. And turn it into this.
The spectrum of our souls must change.
So this isn't actually a bass, but it has bass qualities, I guess. But a lot of people are interested in this, and I didn't really feel like making like a specific, like separate, I wanted it in a thing, so I don't want to make like a how to voice or something like that. I can just cut my lip on the inside with my teeth. I'll deal with that later. Anyway, so this is sort of like a voiceover voice processing thing, and I've actually talked about this before with some people on like Facebook comments, and also one time when I was doing this myself, is that this all sort of begins with the quality of the voice that you're starting with. I will say that it was actually not that difficult to take me saying this, the spectrum of our souls must change, and turn it into eventually this.
The spectrum of our souls must change.
And it's not because I'm really good at whatever kind of processing I just did here. It's because a lot of the necessary qualities of the voice were already present. It's just like they needed the slightest bit of nudge to kind of get there. And that's where you're going to find the best quality of voice processing, is when you don't have to do all that much to it. Depending, of course, on your goal. If you're trying to go for some super gnarly, ultra crushed thing, then that's not really hard. And it really needed to struggle for that. But it's all about trying to get your original voice in the position it needs to be turned into that. And so, what does that mean, and why am I telling you this? Obvious stuff like, if you were a girl and you're trying to make your voice that sounds like your girl voice sound like this final product, that's gonna be kind of hard. But even if you're a guy, in whatever it is you want to turn your voice into, you want to try and emulate as much as you can in your normal voice already. But don't try and speak lower if you can't, or speak higher if you can't. If you're trying to say turn your voice into a girl's voice, you want to sort of maintain the qualities just at your regular voice level. This has to do with a whole bunch of things like related to formants and that kind of stuff, which I'm not really knowledgeable enough to talk about. But what I mean is, like, when I was recording this voice. What you're hearing right now is my normal speaking voice, and what I was doing there was the spectrum. Yeah, my voice actually had to warm up to do this because it involves ruining my throat a little bit. The spectrum of our souls must change. And specifically for that Optimus Prime kind of accent, I had to change. It's supposed to change. Universe, like I'm a half pirate going on in there. Those are the kind of qualities you got to pay attention to, because then those are the ones that get accented when you do stuff to it, like pitch down and modify it and all that good stuff. But there was also lots of totally neat things that we do to, for example, we did some harmony resampling to make the sound, and what that achieved was actually really badass. So let's start at the beginning. So when I recorded this voice, I used this microphone with this setup that I have right now going on. I just put an input in FL and I recorded like that. And also you can kind of hear later on there's actually a lot of bleed in it. This. And that's why there's this incredible amount of noise in the background in the final product, and also why I have these volume layers going on in there. And the reason why I wasn't trying super hard to minimize the bleed is because I knew that it wasn't going to matter. I knew that the processing I was going to do to it would focus mostly on the compression with the signal to noise ratio, and what I end up that I was going to end up doing to it would not survive. The noise would not really be present. It is kind of present if you listen to it really closely, really dry, without any of the reverb effects. Like if that's going on, then it's actually really, you can kind of hear it even in the final product. Let's get off all the reverb. Let's get rid of that too.
This is my modulator.
It's super faint, but it's in there still. But when it's when you have all the rest of the crap on it, it's really hard. It actually becomes difficult to distinguish anything but what you want.
This is my modulator.
And that's just reverbs. I'll show you what I was using: Valhalla Shimmer and Valhalla Room. And this is actually an Edison process where you can blur the audio to create reverse reverb effects. And I actually didn't quite do it the way that I wanted to. And the next time I do my stream for the track from scratch, that is this track, I'm probably going to fix that. we're not really we're not really talking about that. We are mostly talking about the actual like this voice to that voice kind of process. So this is the dry voice that we started with, and the process was first thing I did was I actually compressed it. I have all these effects that I have on it. I haven't had them turned off. This EQ is something I did afterwards. So like
The spectrum of our souls must change. The spectrum of our souls must change.
so this is a de-esser. What I made here. What I'm doing here is I created a midband. The low and the high and the master are not doing anything, and in the midband I centered it right on where the S's live, which is quite plainly clear when you see it in action.
The spectrum of our souls must change.
And what I looked at here is I looked at the average level of that frequency range, and you can see that there's some parts of the frequency range that are active, and then there's some that really peak, and those are the S's. And so I diminished those so that they're not as prevalent at this stage. And like, because the value of this is that if you were to just EQ out the S's, you would diminish also these frequencies that are here regularly, and you do want those because it adds that kind of grit and sound that you want to have for this to work. And then after I do that, I compress it just regularly.
The spectrum of our souls must change.
That's just big old loud compression.
The spectrum of our souls must change.
And then right before I record it, I start messing with the pitching. Now, I don't remember exactly how deep I went. Let's see. I wasn't using the actual pitch. There's a whole bunch of ways actually to pitch something in FL. The primary way would be actually to change the pitch, but if I did that, it would also change the time.
Our lives.
And that's not really what I want to do. If I use the time stretching modes, of which I use the generic, this is the Elastic generic, is actually a new algorithm that came in with FL12. And I just did this to pitch it. I don't remember how far down I went. It wasn't that far though.
The spectrum of our souls must change.
I mean, even that had a tremendous impact on how it sounded.
The spectrum of our souls must change.
That's what it sounds like higher if you were just in that. If you go too far in any one direction, you'll see that it starts to sound a bit cheesy.
The spectrum of our souls must change.
And not totally realistic. I mean, we're not necessarily going for a realistic sound, but what I mean by realistic, I'm talking mostly about the performance stuff. It's the difference between sounding like a weird, like, pipe organ kind of thing, or like a chipmunk, those kinds of things, versus just a guy that has a voice that sounds like that. That's sort of like this is why the people who do the trailer voices are very in demand for that kind of voiceover work, because they just sound like that, and they sound like that, and it sounds right because it is just how they sound.
The spectrum of our souls must change.
And that's actually part of the reason why some of these people are very valuable. Like, one of the things that like made me think about this whole thing is Headhunter's track Dragonborn, where there's a guy on the voice, and it's edited heavily and it's very affected in the process, but for the most part, that's just how he sounds. And there was an interview that Headhunter's been doing where he said that he didn't want to tell anybody who did the voice because he didn't want anyone else to know and to have his voice on stuff, because it's a really cool sounding voice. It just sounds like that, and it becomes really valuable.
The spectrum of our souls must change.
I'm just going to assume that that's how far I went. Then I record it into Edison, which I think I already have recorded. It's disabled though.
The spectrum of our souls must change.
Yeah, that sounds right. And then the next part is the cool part. So right here was far enough to get us a big, kind of neat, but it's still not far enough to get to the territory that we want to get.
The spectrum of our souls must change.
Which is that business. And FL's trying to save. Okay, it saves. FL saves. Yeah, so the next part is that we record it and then we drop it into a harmor. So I'm going to show you what this harmor is doing. And you can see actually, this is where I put it in the playlist right there so that people would see that that's where it was. I have two notes playing. I have the root note.
Glory be to the modulators of the universe.
And then I have this lower one.
Glory be to the modulators of the universe.
Oh, and they're together.
Glory be to the modulators of the universe.
It just sounds very evil. I dig it a lot. But that's not really why it sounds like that. Like, it sounds like that because we're playing the notes, but that's a very small part of what's happening. I have the formant mix engaged over in the image section down here, which is what this does. But you notice that I'm not actually changing the formant thing at all. It's staying still. I put sharpness all the way up. By default, it's over here somewhere. I just put it all the way up. I don't think I'm doing anything else in main FL or main Harmor. Then the part that's important is that I go to the drop-down menu and I go to the image formant mutation page. I almost said page. And what this thing does is where the remaining amount of magic occurs. So what happened here is that this line that we're looking at is actually, instead of changing what all of it thinks is being format range frequencies all at once, it changes only a particular part of it per harmonic.
Glory be to the modulators of the universe.
You can kind of see it changing around up here when I was doing it. Now, the important part about this is that it changes that kind of behavior in that weight without altering the note value or the frequency value. It just is just changing intensity of particular frequencies that are already active. And when formatting is engaged, this is one of the reasons why the lower octave thing works, is because when it's engaged, it tries really hard to keep the formats in their original position no matter what note you're playing. So you could play a lower note, like the note that we're looking at right now is actually the lower note. You can tell because none of the higher frequencies are there, because it ran out of partials to construct it out of. This is, like, the formats are still in the right position that it would have been if I were playing the other note.
Glory be. Glory be.
And it's doing that to try and preserve, because, like, you remember the chipmunk versus whale, option. It's trying to preserve the actual note you want to play, but still have the formative characteristics, which is what we clue in on as being, like, things like gender, like age, and other, like, qualities that are about the voice that we're trying to manipulate. And so that's what the format stuff does. And then this window lets you be very specific about the changes you want to make.
Glory be to the modulators of the universe. Glory be to the modulators of the universe. Glory be to the modulators of the universe. Glory be to the modulators of the universe.
And you do that until you find, like, a comfortable position that you actually enjoy. And that gets us this file, which we have present here. And in my initial creation calculation with that was the wrong amount of stuff I want to do. In my initial creation, I think I might have pitched it again. Nope, it's just there. This is the regular amount. And then we get to post-processing, which some of the gnarls that gets in there comes into play.
Glory be to the modulators of the universe.
So I'm just going to disable the reverb in the beginning here.
Glory be to the modulators of the universe.
A little bit of reverb. So I have this here. This is the dry. And this is the wet of distortion. I am actually distorting it so slightly. You can see it's incredibly slight. But I'm cutting it off at the low end there. And I'm doing it. There is a difference between having an EQ before or after I was like compressor. It technically is a compressor, just don't worry about that, though. Distortion. With distortion like this, we're saying that it's actually distorting the entire spectrum before it gets processed, versus if you put it afterwards, it would only distort this amount, which would have a very different effect of kind of distortion we want to have. But I'm mainly, and only were the two words that I just tried to combine there. I want the qualities of the distortion that I had when it had all the frequencies involved, but I only wanted them to be up on the upper end there, and then to blend them with the original lower frequencies of the dry.
Glory be to the modulators of the universe.
And so it gives us that kind of screechy, clawy, extra tiny bit of sharpness present on top of that. And then there's reverb. I'm using Valhalla Room and Valhalla Shimmer, and it's mostly just kind of to taste about how you want it to work. Shimmer is the one that's causing the most weirdness, and so, like, if you're trying to get Room to do that, that's why. And then it's been compressed. Just a little bit. Actually, this is just a DS. That's all this is.
Glory be to the modulators of the universe.
You might be thinking, well, why the hell did I need to DS it? Did you already do that at the beginning? Well, yeah, but a lot of that came back as a result of the process that we're doing. So that became an issue. Now, there's my voice. It's panned incorrectly. I bet you I could fix that. How about now? Nope. Am I making it worse? I am. How about now? Better.
Glory be.
Yeah. So then put on the reverb, and for this particular passage, I'm letting it kind of creep up to be more near the end.
This is my modulator.
And then there's this thing. So this is actually a way less complicated process than everything that we just did. I recorded out this into its own special thing because I did so after with the volume mod. And this is very important because what we ended up doing is that we put it into Edison, and if the volume mod wasn't on there and we had the noise on still, this would have been a disaster. Is this muted? Yes, it is.
Glory be.
That's the full version. Where's the not full version? I guess I need to do it again, don't I? Is it here? Nope. That's the original recording. Well, I'll just do an example. So let's take this part. We'll come in here, disable reverb. Basically, I use the blur tool in Edison. Like if you know how to do that, then you already know what I'm going to do.
The spectrum of our souls must change. The spectrum of our soul.
See, this is why I'm supposed to use the current channel so that I only have to have one Edison and I don't have to keep putting in numerous Edisons. But
The spectrum of our souls must change.
yeah. So now we have this, and then what we do is we go with the blur tool. Is that this? No. That's this. Blur. We have this sort of this impulse option. It might not show up by default. You might have to click on this. And what this is doing is essentially at the point of center of any particular moment, we can blur it one way or the other. This is essentially reverb. But if you have it not do the other and just do it one way, then you are essentially telling it to reverb into itself. Like so. It can get a little weird, like for the most part, like for example, the thing that I didn't like about what I did wrong with the first version of it was that it sounds very high frequency. And the high frequenciness of it is the fact that it's blurring, well, there's a lot of high frequency content. So I have to kind of like treat, like for the results that I want, I have to sort of pre-treat some of the elements here so that it focused mostly on the vowels and that kind of thing, so it bleeds in with that, as opposed to bleeding in and going shh on everything. That's how you do that. And then I just controlled that in there with volume automation.
We must all modulate our lives. Spectrum of our souls must change.
And remember, that all came from this.
Spectrum of our souls must change.
Spectrum of our souls must change. Spectrum of our souls must change.
Yep. So there you have it. So while you could do a lot with Harmer's formant mutation, for example, and you can also do a lot with like pitch shifting things to make it sound more sinister or like this, the quality of the primary original source also matters a lot. And like, you don't have to get it perfect because remember, you're going to do stuff to it. So you don't necessarily need to sound like that from the get-go. Even if you sound kind of like that, you have a better chance of it sort of becoming as such than if you didn't sound like that at all and then you were trying to make it sound like that. So like, you know, even I was like, quality of our souls, or what was the line?
The spectrum.
Oh, yeah. The spectrum of our souls must change. That would be really hard. Like, and you have to kind of just put the gravel in there, like, the spectrum of our souls must change. Like, even that crappy source could be converted into that with enough sort of finagling and that kind of thing. I just happened to choose a destination that was particularly well suited for my voice, is what that is. Although you can go to pretty interesting places, even without, you know, trying super hard. For example, if you're familiar with Noisia's track Choosing, or no, I Am Legion, I Am Legion's track Choosing For You, the main vocal for that, the Choosing For You, was a processed recording sampled from Half-Life 2, and the original person saying that was the G-Man. And if you actually just Google HL Half-Life 2 ending, you'll see the G-Man speech where he's like, instead of giving you the illusion of free choice, which they say that in the song too, I have taken liberty of choosing for you, and that's where that's from. And so you can see that you can take that with the way that it sounds, and you can turn it into what it sounds like in the I Am Legion track. Judging by how that sounds, probably wasn't a lot to that, because the quality of the voices were pretty similar enough to the point where if you just pitched it and maybe crushed it a bit, it'll probably sound like that. I say probably because I haven't actually tried. Anyway, I'm not really going to give you an FLP for this. This is a very specialized kind of thing to do, but I hope I have shed some light on this particular idea. And if you have any questions about this, please let me know. And as usual, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and whitelist me on your ad blocks and all that good stuff. And have a nice day.